Justin Trudeau is being criticized tonight for wearing brown face makeup at a party in 2001 at a private school where he was a teacher in British Columbia. The party was an Arabian Nights themed gala, and according to Time magazine, which broke this story this evening, the Prime Minister was 29 at the time. His office says he was dressed as a character from Aladdin. Well, tonight in Halifax, the Prime Minister is supposed to react to this. This is the shot of the Prime Minister's campaign plane. The Liberal leader's campaign plane sitting on the tarmac in Halifax as reporters there wait for him to come to the back of the plane where there's a microphone set up there where the reporters normally sit. And we are told in any minute now, and that's been the case for the last 15 or 20 minutes, Justin Trudeau is supposed to come to a microphone and come and speak to reporters there and answer this story that has now broken on the campaign trail. So we're standing by for that. We will have that as soon as the Prime Minister makes that comment and speaks to reporters there. And with me as we watch this, Joël-Denis Bellavance, the Parliamentary Bureau Chief of Presse, and Althia Raj, the Parliamentary Bureau Chief for HuffPost Canada. Good to see you both.
See you, Peter.
Tell me what you make of this. We'll put the photo up again so the viewers can see it for themselves. And what are your thoughts on what we see here?
Well, obviously, I think the controversy is serious enough for the Prime Minister to delay his departure from Halifax to Winnipeg. But reading from reactions on social media, it has inflamed social media already. So the Prime Minister will have to address it head on very quickly. Otherwise, it might follow him for a few days, and he will be losing some critical time of this election while he's splitting for a second mandate. But also, he will have to provide some context, but also maybe help us understand why this was happening 20 years ago. We are judging those pictures from the eyes of 2019, but 20 years ago, these standards was, maybe different. So he'll have to help us understand, put it in context, and will it fly? That remains to be seen.
I think everything takes on a different sort of lens, Althia, in an election campaign. And part of this is, given the kinds of things we've already heard about, things candidates have said or written in the past that they've been called on the carpet for, they've been criticized for, and now there's this situation. Is this the same as that, with this picture in Justin Trudeau?
Well, I think it's similar, and I think that is a question the Liberal leader will have to answer. Where is the standard? Where do you draw the line? Is there one set of standards that apply to Liberal candidates and Conservative candidates, but a different set of standard applies to the leader of the Liberal Party, the former Prime Minister? Well, he's still currently the Prime Minister, but you know what I mean. I think that's something that he will probably be asked and that he will have to address. One thing in a picture like that is that it's kind of shocking to see. Like, it makes you feel uncomfortable. In a way, for the Prime Minister, the fact that he's dressed up as a character from Aladdin, that he's dressed as
let's put the picture up again as you talk about
that he's wearing brown face and not black face, because I think black face really would be a lightning rod for racism and everything that contains about dehumanizing people, demeaning people. That I think is I don't know how you would skate around that. I feel like he probably has a better chance of explaining this picture than he would blackface, but it will be interesting to see how, especially visible minorities, people around the GTA, people from the Middle East, if they feel like this is insulting, right? Because it's not about how I may perceive it or how Joël-Denis may perceive it, but how do you perceive somebody who is dressing up as you or your culture?
Yeah, and also how the people from ethnocultural communities living in Toronto, for example, Vancouver, those big cities where it's a very diverse city, how those people will receive that kind of picture. This is a very very key questions for the Liberal Party tonight. How will this impact their support within those communities?
This story broke tonight during an NDP town hall with NDP leader Jagmeet Singh in Toronto. It came in a reporter question during this town hall. Let me show you Jagmeet Singh's reaction. I want you to hear what he had to say when he was told about this story. Let's listen.
From the media, I mean.
Hi, Mr. Singh. It's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News.
Hi, Annie.
There is a story just breaking in Time magazine. It says that Justin Trudeau wore brown face back in 2001 at an Arabian Nights party when he was teaching at a private school. The Prime Minister's office has confirmed that this was Mr. Trudeau in the photo. They say it was an Arabian Nights and it was back in 2001, before he was Prime Minister, before he was a politician. I'm wondering what you think about this, what your initial reaction is to this story in time.
Well, it's troubling. I mean, it's insulting. Anytime we hear examples of brownface or blackfacing, it's making a mockery of someone for what they live and what their lived experiences are. I think he needs to answer for it. I think he's got to answer the question why he did that. And what does that say about what he thinks about people who, because of who they are, because of the color of their skin, face challenges and barriers and obstacles in their life? Racism is real. People in this room have felt it. I've heard the stories I've experienced in my life. He's got to answer those questions.
Justin Trudeau is expected to address the media tonight that are traveling with him on the election campaign. I'm wondering what you would like to hear from him and what you think that he should be saying to the public.
I think what this shows is something that we've seen some examples of. Now it seems to be a pattern behavior. We see one Mr. Trudeau in public that I'll be honest with you, seems really nice, right? Very friendly, very warm in public. But behind closed doors, it seems like it's a different Mr. Trudeau. Behind closed doors, we saw at a private fundraiser when activists who were saying that our community is being poisoned by mercury, people from Grassy Narrows, they put up a sign saying, hey, our communities are being poisoned. What are you going to do about the fact that people are dying in our community that are suffering because of mercury poison? He mocked them and said, thank you for your donation, while the crowd of wealthy fundraisers, the attendees of the fundraiser, clapped on and jeered these protesters. I mean, on one hand, he says that Indigenous communities are the most important relationship, but then behind closed doors, he mocks people. They didn't attack him. They said, our people are suffering from mercury poisoning, and he mocked those people. I mean, what type of behavior does that show from a prime minister who mocks people who are saying this? I want to say, who is the real Mr. Trudeau? Is it who we see in public, or the one behind doors that forgives loans for corporations but makes students pay $3 billion? Who is the real Mr. Trudeau? Is it the one behind closed doors? The one when the cameras are turned off and when no one sees? Is that the real Mr. Trudeau? Because more and more that seems like it is.
All right, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh at a campaign event tonight. That's his view of what all of this means. Joël-Denis Bellavance, Althia Raj standing by with me as we wait for this statement. And I'm not sure exactly what we'll see, but we'll have whatever there is. Prime Minister is supposed to be showing up now, and whether it's a statement and or questions from journalists, we'll see. But you see the way Jagmeet Singh is framing it, that there are two Justin Trudeaus, and he wants to know which one the public is really dealing with. So we're keeping our eyes on this, on that airplane shot with the curtain. All right. These are the press attaches for the Prime Minister, which means if they're there, we'll just stay on this image. If they're there, he will be coming out very soon. These are the kinds of things people talk about, right, in campaigns. It's the unexpected, and who expected this? But here it is. Okay, I just heard them quickly say the 1 minute warning, and you may have heard that too. So just quickly, to both of you, in 15 seconds or so, you can see the way Jagmeet Singh is going to frame this and is framing this narrative.
Yeah, and it's a very powerful narrative, I would say. He experienced racism, and he can talk to it with a personal view, and people will listen to that kind of personal experience and personal view that he's putting forward.
Althia?
I think Mr. Singh is lucky that he was the first person to address this, but he will have the clip on the national news for sure. And it may be the moment where people start looking, who don't want to vote for Justin Trudeau, because we've heard that a lot at the doors across the country, who are looking for an alternative. And perhaps Mr. Singh has demonstrated that he can be that alternative.
And you could see by Mr. Singh's reaction, it was a bit taken aback. He took a pause before answering his questions. I think he wanted to say it properly and describe the narrative that was going through his head.
Yeah, I got the sense in looking at him and listening to him, he was processing that question. Yeah. What?
Exactly.
What are you asking me? What is he? What's the photo? And then thinking about it, and then spending some time dealing with it. The Conservative leader, Andrew Scheer, is supposed to react later tonight to this. He's in between campaign stops. And as I say, we're standing by now to hear from Justin Trudeau. Again, what do you think he has to say? I mean, we're not advisors of the Prime Minister, but knowing how quickly this has spread in just an hour or so, he has to say what?
Explain.
Let's find out. Here he is. Let's listen in.
In 2001, when I was a teacher out in Vancouver, I attended an end-of-year gala where the theme was Arabian Nights. And I dressed up in an Aladdin costume and put makeup on. I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better, but I didn't. And I'm really sorry. En 2001,
in 2001, I was teaching in Vancouver, and at the school's end-of-year gala, which had Arabian 1001 Nights as a theme, Arabian Nights, I dressed up as Aladdin in a costume and wore makeup. I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better. I should have known that it was the wrong thing to do, and I am very sorry for that. You weren't 16 or 20, you were 29. You're 29 years old. It was a mistake. It's something I should not have done. I should have known better, and I regret it profoundly. Are you willing to apologize for it? Absolutely. I'm deeply sorry. I have disappointed myself, and I'm truly sorry.
I think there are people who've made mistakes in this life, and you make decisions based on what they actually do, what they did, and on a case-by-case basis. I think I deeply regret that I did that. I should have known better, but I didn't. And I didn't.
How do you feel about this coming out right now in the campaign?
Obviously, I regret that I did it. It's not about timing. It's about having done something that I shouldn't have done, and I'm really sorry I did.
Have you done something like this, Mr. Trudeau? Is that the only time in your life you've ever done something like that?
When I was in high school, I dressed up at a talent show and sang Deo with makeup on. Au secondaire, je me suis déguisé avec du maquillage.
In high school, I wore a costume, put on makeup, and sang Deo. If somebody in the Conservative Party had done that, wouldn't you be calling for resignation? I would look at their behavior. I would look at how they'd acted. I'm something that's worked hard all my life to fight intolerance and discrimination. I should have known better even at that age that it was the wrong thing to do. I'm deeply sorry for it.
Racialized Canadians who are likely going to be offended by seeing these photos and hearing about what you also did in high school.
I regret it deeply. I'm deeply sorry that I did that. I should have known better, but I didn't, and I did that, and I shouldn't have done that.
Why is this coming out now?
Listen, it was something that I shouldn't have done many years ago, and I recognize that I shouldn't have done it.
Will you resign? Will you resign? Many in the United States, when they've been discovered with these sorts of things, they are asked to resign. Have you given thought to resigning?
I take responsibility for my decision to do that. I shouldn't have done it. I should have known better. It was something that I didn't think was racist at the time, but now I recognize it was something racist to do, and I am deeply sorry.
I wondered if you might place a call tonight to Jagmeet Singh, to Amarjeet Sohi, to Harjit Sajjan, if you have any words to say to some of your staff who may find this offensive.
I have made a number of calls to friends and colleagues tonight, and I will have many more colleagues, many more calls to make.
The Conservatives say you're not as advertised. How can you look at Canadians and tell them that's not true?
I have worked all my life to try and create opportunities for people to fight against racism and intolerance, and I can just stand here and say that I made a mistake when I was younger, and I wish I hadn't. I should have known better then, but I didn't, and I did it, and I am deeply sorry for it.
Are you if your candidates had come out with one of these photos during the campaign, would an apology have been enough for you to allow them to stay?
We would make that decision on a case-by-case basis and look at all the factors involved, but I can't answer a hypothetical on that.
Why should you be allowed to stay?
I'm going to be asking Canadians to forgive me for what I did. I shouldn't have done that. I take responsibility for it. It was a dumb thing to do. I'm disappointed in myself. I'm pissed off at myself for having done it. I wish I hadn't done it, but I did it. And I apologize for it.
Does your team know about this?
It's for you to apologize for this. You've known that this happened a long time ago.
I've been forthright when this has come forward that it is something that I regret deeply having done.
Your research team has been hammering the Conservatives on social media. We've been told privately there's an arsenal of things still to come for inappropriate social media behavior in the past. Does all of that how could you credibly do something like that now in the middle of a campaign after what we've all seen tonight?
I've taken responsibility for it, for having made a real mistake in the past. I stand here before Canadians, as I will throughout this campaign, and talk about the work we have to do to make a better country together. And I'm going to continue to stay focused on that and continue to work to fight intolerance and discrimination, even though, obviously, I've made a mistake in the past.
When did your team know about this?
How could you fail to know that this was racist? You're almost 30. 20 years ago, I made a decision I should not have made. I regret it deeply. I made the decision I did, and I take responsibility for it.
This means that I'm going to continue to work very hard to demonstrate to Canadians that I'm always going to try and take responsibility for my mistakes, but always work towards a better future for all Canadians. I have a big day in Winnipeg tomorrow where I'm going to be meeting with Canadians. We're going to continue getting out there across the country and talking about the kind of future we all need to roll up our sleeves and build.
Does this change the way you feel about other candidates who may have made mistakes on social media or other things in their past? Maybe you should have given them a little more latitude when you knew that this was something in your past?
I think this is something that, like everything, that you have to evaluate on a case-by-case basis. This is something that I take seriously and I take responsibility for. I'm pissed off at myself, obviously. I'm disappointed in myself, and I'm apologizing to Canadians.
What does taking responsibility mean? What is the consequence for you? For a lot of your candidates, this would be at least calls for resignation.
This would be calls for important conversations with all those candidates and real taking stock in the path forward. And I'm having conversations with my colleagues, with fellow candidates, and I'm going to be continuing to having conversations with Canadians about this and about many other things that we're hoping to work together on positively.
You said you've had conversations with individuals probably over the last hour. In talking to racialized members of your cabinet and your caucus, what have they said to you? Are they disappointed?
I've said to them what I'm saying here, how
What did they say to you?
I've said to them what I'm saying here, how I take responsibility for it, how I did something that I really shouldn't have done, and I'm disappointed and pissed off at myself. What they said, quite frankly, I am touched by having as thoughtful a team around me as I have.
When did your team know about this? When did they find out?
I've been talking to candidates I've been talking to my fellow candidates tonight.
When did your team know?
Did you know about this before, that this was going to break before the event this afternoon?
I found out today that it was going to break tonight.
Some people have resigned for less than that. You've kicked people out for less than that. So how can you explain this? Incidents are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. And while I acknowledge what I have done and regret it very deeply, we have also, as a government, fought against intolerance and discrimination and racism. We have recognized the work that needs to be done with communities to fight intolerance, and I believe that I have been and am an ally of those communities. That's why I'm deeply disappointed in myself. I know the communities will be disappointed, so we have a lot of work to do.
When did you let them know?
We've had conversations about this over the past while, but the reality is that we are going to continue to focus on fighting discrimination and racism as a person.
You didn't tell them about this until this?
I've talked about it recently, yes.
The woman in the photograph, you're touching her in a very familiar way, depending on your relationship with her. Who was she and what was that?
She was a close friend.
Was this photo racist in your opinion?
Yes. Yes, it was. I didn't consider it a racist action at the time, but now we know better, and this was something that was unacceptable, and yes, racist.
Within the last year, the governor of Virginia was found to have been pictures in blackface. Did you not think at that time, maybe I should say something to my friends and colleagues about something I did? We've seen other celebrities, comedians also confront this sort of behavior. Did you think at that time, geez, I'm a politician and I've done that, maybe I should say something?
This is part of the reflections we all have to have on how we judge the mistakes that we've made in the past, how we take responsibility for them, and mostly how we keep moving forward as a society, recognizing that we do need to do more to fight anti-black racism, systemic discrimination, unconscious bias, all these things that are present that I'm certainly not immune from. I think there's certainly a significant reflection that I've had over the past while on this, and if it leads other people to have reflections, then that's a good thing, but this is very much about me taking responsibility for an action I really shouldn't have taken.
Do you understand why it's racist to wear blackface? Could you explain that, why it is racist?
I think it's well known that communities and people who live with intersectionalities and face discrimination, the likes of which I have never personally had to experience, is a significant thing that is very hurtful, and that's why I am so deeply disappointed in myself.
Why didn't you tell people sooner? Why?
This is a time where we're focused on moving forward as a country, and we're continuing to fight.
Why didn't you tell people sooner?
I'm talking about it now.
This photo wasn't taken yesterday, but it's the first time we're hearing about it. I have been in politics for 10 years. I have been working for 10 years to create a better future for all Canadians. That is my choice. That is what I focus on.
I'm going to have a conversation with them tomorrow morning before they go to school about taking responsibility for mistakes we make, about living up every day to try and be a better person, and recognizing that when you make mistakes, you have to take responsibility for it, you have to own up for it, and you have to promise to do better. That's what I expect of my kids, that's how I'm going to be raising them, and that's certainly the conversation that I'm going to be having with them tomorrow.
Why would you launch the attack you did on the Conservatives, knowing you had this in your background? This seems like a terrible mistake, knowing you've done something like this.
I think the fact is that I look forward to having conversations about how we move forward as a society, how we move forward as individuals. If everyone who is going to be standing for office needs to demonstrate that they've been perfect every step of their lives, there's going to be a shortage of people running for office. I think what is important is that yes, people get challenged on mistakes they've made in the past, that they recognize those mistakes, and they pledge to do better. That's what we expect of people.
Mr.
Andrew
Trudeau,
Scheer was
Mr.
going to do
Trudeau.
that with his candidates, and he had said so a few days ago. People should be forgiven, and it didn't seem to me like many Liberals were ready to grant him the time of day for that.
I certainly accept that people can make choices about who they choose to run with and who they choose to have as candidates.
Mr. Trudeau, you've mentioned the incident in high school, and we've just found out about the photo tonight. Do you want to tell Canadians about any other instances where you were concerned that you were racist or that you had blackface or brownface?
I think it's been plenty. The fact of the matter is that I've always, and you'll know this, been more enthusiastic about costumes than is sometimes appropriate. But these are the situations that I regret deeply.
Is it the only two, or are there more?
These are the situations I regret deeply.
Mr. Trudeau, when you go to sleep tonight, or when you're sleeping or going to bed, and you're reflecting on this day, what are you going to be thinking?
I'm going to be thinking about how much harder I'm going to have to continue to work to demonstrate to Canadians that I'm focused on building a better world with less discrimination, less intolerance, and less racism. And that this choice that I made many years ago, which was the wrong choice and one that I regret deeply, I am owning up to and going to focus on moving forward. Merci tout le monde. Bonsoir.
All right, so a dramatic turn of events in the federal election campaign tonight, with the Liberal leader reacting to this story in Time magazine of the photo of Justin Trudeau wearing brown face during a school gala party in 2001 in British Columbia at the private school where he was teaching. Althia Raj and Joël-Denis Bellavance watching along with me. Justin Trudeau saying should have known better, asking for forgiveness from Canadians, didn't think it was racist at the time, but now realize it was. His words, pissed off at himself for what he's done, and also saying there's at least one other incident in high school where he dressed in makeup to sing the song Deo. So this is a breaking, developing story tonight that puts the Liberal leader squarely in the national spotlight here, in the context as well of an election campaign where all kinds of things have been said about other candidates from other parties who have had their past dredged up for things they've said or written. And a lot of those incidents have been uncovered by the Liberal Party, and they have spared no scorn in identifying these people and talking about them and saying they're unfit largely for elected office. Joël-Denis Bellavance and Althia Raj watching along with me. How did he do?
Well, I think he did what he needed to do, which is to apologize. And I was, taken aback by the number of times that he did say, "I regret this deeply." Even used the word "dumb." So to describe his behavior then. So this will have, I think, an impact for the coming days in this election campaign. Will dominate, I think, the discussions about his action then. And we'll have to measure that up with what he has done as Prime Minister and his conduct. I think also he's also a judgment. But let's not forget, in 2001, Mr. Trudeau was 29. So at what age do you grow up, if I may say?
And a lot of the questions were about that, Althea, that you weren't a teenager, you weren't a young man at the age of 29. What are your thoughts on how he handled this?
I think he did what he needed to, in the sense that he needed to take full responsibility for what he said, and he needed to almost be more outraged with himself than he expects the opposition leaders to be outraged with him. But this is the type of story, it's like the India trip, but for different reasons. This is the type of story that, like, not just the policy geeks who are watching CPAC are going to be talking about. This is the type of story that you're going to see on your Facebook feed, that people are going to be talking about at work tomorrow, and that will just really percolate. A lot of people feel like the election really hasn't started yet, that people are not really paying attention. This may be the first thing that people really start paying attention to. The fact that he admitted that there is another incident that I'm sure reporters are already going through yearbook pictures from his high school trying to figure out if there is physical proof of this.
And he was asked a number of times, are there any more you want to tell us about? And he said, at one point said plenty, and then he said, this is what I'm talking about tonight, basically deflecting. What does that mean? Does he not know if there may be others in his past? Or
one element that is, I think, interesting, Peter, is the fact that they knew this was coming, and they were preparing for that day when that picture would be published by the Time magazine, and it's an American magazine.
Yeah.
And so they were preparing for that day. And there was a good question also asked by a reporter there, asking, when you saw other people in the United States painting their face, having brown face, black face, did you think about that picture then? And the Prime Minister, I think, was a bit taken aback by that question. But I think because there's been a controversy in the United States about that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, the context is everything we've seen in the United States and already in this election campaign, Althea, about what other candidates, missteps other candidates have made. The suggestion here is, and reading the story in Time, it sounds like they got the picture earlier this month. There have been overtures to the Prime Minister's office to say, is this Justin Trudeau?
Chose to confirm it today.
And they chose to confirm it today.
Why today?
Probably because they must have known it one way or the other it's coming out. And so how do we control the timing of it? If that's the issue, I don't know. But it raises the issue of the opportunity at any point along this process, once you're contacted by Time, to come out ahead of it and say, there's going to be a story about me doing this. Yeah. And it's true. I did it, and I feel bad about it, but instead we wait for the story to come out before the reaction.
Yeah. Parties usually do really good opposition research on their own people, so they know what's coming out. And it's interesting to me that, I've never heard such rumors percolating around Parliament Hill of Mr. Trudeau engaging in this type of behavior. And if it's easily found in the yearbook from West Point Grey, where he was teaching, one assumes the opposition researchers would have had this. Why hasn't anybody talked to? Is there more of this from other people that we don't know of? I mean, to me, it seems really foreign. This is obviously something that nobody did when I was at school, that nobody did when I was at university. But I was surprised to hear the Prime Minister not try to explain it, to say, come out clearly and say, this is racist and I'm really sorry and I shouldn't have done this.
One of the points that I think needs to be made is that the Prime Minister, before he met reporters tonight, was busy phoning his own cabinet colleagues who are part of his cabinet, apologizing for this. So you've got a Prime Minister who's apologizing not only to Canadians but to his own colleagues who, Arjit Sajjan, the Defense Minister, Amajit Sohi, among others.
Minister in Edmonton.
Exactly. So it must have been a very difficult conversation for the Prime Minister to have.
Is it clear how we heard from Jagmeet Singh a little earlier, and we shot of a hotel room here in Toronto. We're standing by to hear from him again now that the Prime Minister, or the Liberal leader, going to do that a lot in the campaign. He's the Prime Minister, but in this case, an election campaign, he's the Liberal leader. But this is the hotel room where we're expecting any minute now to hear from the NDP leader, who will respond now that he's heard Justin Trudeau. And I think that's another interesting part of this story is if you're the opposition parties, what do you do with this? Is this? I guess we'll find out in fairly short. And if you're wondering about Andrew Scheer, he's on a plane apparently on the way to Sherbrooke, Quebec, and will comment when he gets to Sherbrooke. So we'll have that later this evening in our coverage here. But what do you do if you're the opposition party?
Well, the reaction by Jagmeet Singh, I think, was very telling. I think he was shocked and expressed it in a very appropriate way. We've discovered a very different Jagmeet Singh in this campaign than we've seen since he's been the leader of the NDP, a very different political leader, more impressive, I would say, more in control and in command of his files, but also of his emotions. And you could see it today on this file. And if he's going to react again, as you mentioned, and if I were in the Tory shoes, I think I would let Mr. Singh take the main stage on this one, because it deals with him. It deals, something that he felt through in the past, racism as a racialized leader.
And if there's heavy criticism to come, you're the opposition party. If you're the Conservatives, saying, yeah, exactly what Mr. Singh said.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think that in this election campaign, we have the unique ability of having a racialized leader that can actually speak from personal experience. And so we've never had somebody who could say why this is troublesome to me and to people who look like me. And so in that way, I think the criticism is more biting than it would be if it was, I'm sorry to say, but a white man or a white woman, because they don't have that personal connection. Why are you offended by this? And Mr. Singh can speak to that. I agree that we've seen a new I don't know if it's the new. We've seen the Jagmeet Singh from the NDP leadership race, frankly. He's a good campaigner. He's very charming. He's good on his feet. Maybe the foyer of the House of Commons was, maybe it was baptismal by fire, and it wasn't where he shined. But I thought he was very thoughtful and measured in his comments. And what he said earlier today about two versions of the Prime Minister, I've actually heard that at the doors. People wondering if the guy we saw in India is really the guy who, is in 24 Sussex. He doesn't really live at 24 Sussex because nobody lives at 24 Sussex at the moment.
Well, it's being renovated.
The place is rotting, not even renovating at the moment. But, it's the public image of Justin Trudeau. Which public image am I supposed to believe? And that's obviously probably something the NDP want to pound on.
And the Conservatives are already doing it, right? That's their campaign, not as advertised.
But this is
he just walked into that. He just walked into that narrative that this is something else we didn't know about.
That everybody is framed around him. But the framing works because focus groups tell the political parties how they feel about the leaders and what concerns that they have. And so, it's interesting.
What do we watch for next?
How Mr. Singh will react again, how the Tories react to that. I think this will be very critical, and how this will play out in the next few days, because obviously this will derail the Liberal campaign for a few days, despite the good announcements that the Liberal leader has prepared. And if the Liberal war room have more ammunitions against the opposition parties on candidates, how will they use it against those candidates?
Can they use it?
Can they use it? That's
in
the
this
question.
context?
Maybe best to hold your gunfire for a few days.
All right, Joël-Denis Bellavance, Althia Raj, thanks for your time tonight. Appreciate it, and we'll
you.
continue to follow the story, obviously.